Stay tuned after the episode to hear our latest edition of And Then What?
We call her Marge. Large and in charge. Folks instinctively comment, "Now that's a big boat," when they first lay eyes on the 23-foot-long raft. At the launch, Marge's tubes inflate to stand nearly chest-high on my 5'5" stature. It takes 3 guides to lift her metal frame and cinch it to her bodacious body. She simply dwarfs the other oarboats, gently bobbing in an eddy on the middle fork of the Salmon River. As one of the most revered, free-flowing rivers in the U.S., this wild and scenic river cuts through the Frank Church wilderness with such a steep gradient that the current and rapids seemingly never stop. During the mining boom of the late 1800s, miners in this corridor began building scows to transport equipment and lumber. These large wooden scows evolved into inflatable rubber rafts called sweepboats. Nowadays, river guides drive these massive rafts, laden with camping gear, through the Middle Fork's technical rapids on multi-day commercial river trips. With the weight of the gear and the river's relentless current, Marge builds momentum, cruising or careening downstream. Driving her requires a guide to harness that momentum using 2 massive oars called sweep arms, which extend over her bow and stern. A large plank of wood called the blade floats atop the water's surface. Blades are fastened to steel rods that teeter-totter over metal saddles strapped to Marge's bow and stern. Spray-painted rainbow stripes decorate the arms, but the wooden handles are left bare, weathered smooth from the calloused hands of river guides. The handles hover at chest height over a platform in the middle of the raft, known as the dance floor. It's a space for driving, balancing, adjusting, and, inevitably, stumbling. I am no prodigy when it comes to rivers. I spent my rookie year in the Southeast and quickly contributed to the end-of-season carnage reel. I ducked down in the back of the paddle raft, close my eyes, and hold on while my Southeastern guests prayed to God as we hurtled over the waterfalls. God had little to say in whether or not we made it upright. Thousands of river miles, and a couple years later, I made it to the Middle Fork of the Salmon, a river guide's holy grail. But made it was redefined on the first day of my company's training trip. The Middle Fork surged at baffling speeds during spring runoff. Blisters ripped across my palms in the first 3 miles from over-gripping the heavy Sawyer oars. I desperately wished I was onsiding these rapids in my nimble kayak. Instead, I volunteered to row to get reps on the oars, which I obviously needed. Exhausted from the power of the river, I was then quickly overwhelmed by the new company systems, like the eggs-to-order breakfast menu. As night fell, the only line I managed to scribble in my journal was, "Eggs. Look that shit up." I never expected to drive the sweep. At work, my predominant craft is a kayak, so I'm usually the one helping load Marge since I have no raft of my own to rig. Today, though, I'm rigging Marge and driving her, with the help of a veteran guide. As I haul heavy bags across camp, I lift my gaze to Marge and feel like a toddler eyeing a 2-wheeler. Impressed, but uncertain about how to actually do the thing. Marge looks impossible. How could such an enormous raft make it through the technical moves of the river? I've heard stories of my fellow guides leaping off of her with superhuman air, sprinting to wrap the rope around the nearest tree to halt her downstream charge. They have seconds to make it before the rope snaps taut. Or else, they'll be drugged downstream and miss camp. A sweep driver's worst nightmare. You're back in the corner again. Use the whole dance floor. My fellow guide nonchalantly chides me during a training day on the sweep. I whiff the front sweep arm and almost eject myself into the river over the gear bags stacked too high around the periphery of the raft. Straightening up, I shuffle back to the center and try again. Nothing about this front and back rudder steering feels intuitive. Trying to go left, I fumble and turn Marge right into the riverbank. We bounce off and pinball through the rapid. One mistake means a whole lot more mistakes. Recovery feels almost impossible with my delayed reactions and uncertain movements. I cinch down the last strap, then double-check my rigging. I'll be driving Marge. Solo this time. Marge resists as the four of us shove her off the rocky shore. In one fluid motion, I transition from pushing to hauling myself onto her dance floor, waving goodbye with a smile masking my trepidation. My sweaty palms rotate over the smooth wooden handles, and I shift my weight from side to side, scanning the entrance to the rapid ahead. I feel simultaneously invincible and very, very alone. Lifting my arm, I touch the front blade to a midstream eddy, nervously testing its resistance, just as a novice climber might double tap a foothold before weighting it. The canyon walls close in, and the sound of white water is a mere muffle as my internal thoughts blare. Use your whole body. The whole dance floor. Shallow breaths and a pounding heart accompany calculations of my speed and angle relative to the current. Go! My mind shouts as I enter the rapid. Left. Right. Slither through the slot. I follow the route from last week's training, holding a surfer stance while lifting and lowering my arms to catch the currents with my blades. Marge accelerates. I clench my jaw and, instinctively, shut my eyes as we screech to a halt. I'd missed the second slot, thwarted by a single rock no larger than a basketball. Gasping, I remember my friend's voice. You will get stuck. Do something, now, my mind commands. Less than 10 minutes into my first solo day with Marge, I'm stuck on a tiny rock. Pivoting the sweep arms yields nothing. I anchor the front sweep with the strap so the blade levitates above the rapid, then throw my weight into the back arm with all my might. Nothing. My southeastern creaking roots remind me to get my feet wet. Without hesitation, I jump into the shallows next to Marge. It's late season and the flows only reach my knees. A fleeting moment of awe hits me as I realize what a crazy ordeal it is to navigate 4,000-pound Marge through these shallows. Ramming my shoulder into her side, I elbow her as if to say, "Move it!" If she could, she'd roll her eyes. I swing back in the saddle, which actually means I haul my soggy self onto the dance floor. Reaching for my Prusik carabiners and flip line, I think mechanical advantage ought to do the trick. Quickly, I assemble a simple rope system that I've used on smaller rafts to lift Marge's tube off the rock. My hands work as though I'm a concert pianist performing a masterpiece from memory. Marge groans as I heave on the system with all my might. We stay put. The sting of sweat irritates my sunburn as I wipe my brow. Time to move bags. Reluctantly, I loosen the cam straps securing the dry bags to the perimeter of the raft. 30 pounds at a time, I redistribute the weight of the luggage in hopes to decompress Marge's tube from the rock. Through trial and error, with pressure and release, Marge begins to budge. The smallest movements scooch us free. Yes! Elated and terrified, I release my bow blade and steer Marge into the flow. Come on, Marge. Work with me, I whisper. I read the microcurrents and time my strokes to set up for the sharp bend ahead. Downstream, the main flow smashes into a sheer cliff, ricocheting off a wall in a violent, swirling chaos. A fleeting fatigue washes over me when I think of smashing Marge into the granite. I must make this move. Once again, the mighty roar of the salmon becomes white noise. In my mind, I hear a wise guide remind me to feel her energy. You can't fight the river, work with her. Marge picks up speed as I slowly exhale, trusting the ribbon of current taking me towards my next move. I hear another mentor coach me, just like that. Make your move. Now wait, pull. Using my whole body, I begin to dance with Marge. I'm cheering myself on. You've got this. You are strong. Now get down. I squat and slam the handles to the dance floor to lift the blades and clear the drop in the rapid. Stand up. Use your rudder. Eyes on the slot. You've got this. Waves crash into the concave wall, yet the echoes I hear are only encouraging voices as I negotiate with Marge through the rapid. When we clear the rapid, I push down on the sweep handles like a gymnast on the double bars. I hover above the dance floor and double kick with joy. A jubilant scream erupts from my chest as I realize I did it. All by myself. I did it! Leaping into the air again, I look back at the rapid in disbelief. Unscathed and inspired, pride wells in my chest. As we float downstream in the tailwaves, the rapid diminishes in size, yet my emotions sear this moment into memory. Wildly excited, I take in the landscape. The Idaho sunshine sparkles the clear waters, and a thin breeze whips the strands of hair from my sweaty face. Not a human in sight, I revel at the dichotomy of such dynamic experiences in this tranquil wilderness. A small realization sets in as I acknowledge my positive self-talk in that last rapid. A rarity in a summer dominated by self-doubt. I'd shied from big challenges as a protective mechanism. You can't fail if you don't try, I'd thought. My resilience was fragile, easily shattered by a simple mistake. Yet in that rapid, I believed in myself. I had to believe in myself. Driving Marge elicited a certain kind of focus, presence, and dedication to the task at hand. With a sliver of luck and encouraging self-talk, the challenge was thrilling, empowering, enlightening. I can do this. I want the challenge. Collecting my thoughts, I place Marge in the current and urge her towards the entrance lateral in the next rapid. Waves lap, then slap her sides as she gains momentum in the flow. Hovering in the center of the dance floor, I shift my grip to give me the power to make the moves in the approaching rapid. A little smile tugs at the corner of my cheek. There's no beginner's luck here. I know Marge will make me work for it. And I'm ready. My name is Jessie Longe, and this is my short.
After the break, we head to the highest peak in Vermont where Lili Mitchell encounters an unexpected guest that nearly derails her high-pointing dreams. So we just got back from hanging out on the beach in California, and it was like classic Northern California beach weather where it was a mix of fog, sun, and wind. And though we were really good at putting sunscreen on in the morning, sometimes we slipped in the afternoon, and it was like, why would I ever get burned? It's gray out. And then we got torched. Fortunately, we had Turn's Mayday Designed for when you've been exposed to the element, it has 3-time turn special marine-derived complex that speeds up skin regeneration and healing, and it helps minimize peeling and replenishes moisture. I like Turn's philosophy of maximum results, minimum routine. Having a go-to product that's good for my skin is awesome. After sun should not be an afterthought, especially at this time of year when we're all out doing the things we love and sometimes getting burned. Use the code DIRTBAG to get 25% off your first order at turns.com. We'll put a link in the show notes and you can try Turns for yourself. Support for the Diaries comes from our good friends at Rafts. Are you looking to level up your truck bed setup for the summer season? The Ibex from Rafts is the perfect companion. This fully modular, all-metal bed rack system is built to handle every season and sport. So whether you're hauling bikes, kayaks, rooftop tents, or just gearing up for the summer road trip, the Ibex adapts with adjustable height options and a growing lineup of accessories. And now, new for 2025, the Ibex Panel Kit. It's designed to partially or fully enclose the Ibex. The panel kit keeps your gear secure and dry from the elements, and the lockable gull-wing doors offer a quick, easy access to the truck bed when you need it. Currently available for 2016 to 2025 Toyota Tacoma short beds with more fitments on the way. Find out more at kuat.com.
First of all, let it be known that this whole debacle was all my dad's fault. In the true fashion of a middle-aged crisis, my dad, Thomas James Mitchell, spontaneously decided to take his 12-year-old daughter on a road trip during a long weekend in June of 2018. This was not just any road trip, with motel lodgings, the occasional steakhouse, gas station pit stops, and a couple of photos next to kitschy roadside attractions. No. This was a full-on, outdoorsy, car-campy road trip consisting of hiking and summiting our first 5 U.S. state high points in 4 days. My home state of Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, and lastly, Vermont. For anyone not in the know, the U.S. state high points are, quite literally, the highest elevation points in each state. The goal of a high pointer, such as myself, is to summit, hike, climb, ice pick, crampon, or simply stroll up to a plaque that says it is the highest point and take a picture. In our case, preferably holding an 8-inch tall ceramic green dinosaur named after Grace Hopper. Obviously. There's an official High Pointers Club, magazine, website, and even an Instagram account to accompany a monumental task that only balding, gray-haired white guys in their 50s would have the audacity to take on, i.e., my amazing father, and by familial extension, their reluctant daughters, forced into it by dint of only being 12 years old, i.e., me. The day started fresh and clear, with a robin's egg blue sky and fluffy marshmallow clouds promising a beautiful sunny hike ahead of us. We only had one hike on our to-do list, Mount Mansfield in Vermont. My dad and I were already quite tired. We had completed Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut on Thursday, and then we had hiked 14.7 miles round trip to the summit of Mount Marcy in New York on Friday. Still, we felt cheerful, accomplished even, and finally comfortable camping in the same tent. Well, my dad was. I couldn't sleep because of his grizzly bear-level snoring. Excited to finish our last hike of the trip, we crammed down steaming bowls of instant ramen and packed up camp, shoving our dew-drenched tent into its stuff sack and stuffing as much trail mix, Werther's hard caramels, peanut M&Ms, and homemade beef jerky into our pockets and packs as possible. I slathered on sunscreen and bug spray at the fervent behest of my dad, who only dabbed the tiniest bit of the former on the tip of his nose and spritzed the smallest amount of the latter on his ankles. I was brimming with cheerfulness when we headed for the trailhead, skipping through the parking lot and swinging my hiking poles as carefree as could be. Everything was fine and dandy until we got to the trailhead and did one last bathroom break before heading up Mount Mansfield. When I pulled down my pants, I saw blood in my underwear, and surely enough, I promptly freaked out in a small, smelly trailhead cubicle, thankfully equipped with a flusher toilet. Now, finding dark, rusty stains streaking the insides of your underpants always signals a very bad day when you're a person with a period. Taking a pee check before hiking up a mountain with your father and finding yourself undergoing your first period ever, well, you just know then that the world is just out to mess with you. One would think that I would have at least had a pad on me as a pubescent 12-year-old with a pediatrician for a mother, but alas, one would be wrong. This was my first period ever, and I was incredibly unprepared and out of my mind scared. So, I did what people do when they get their period unexpectedly and don't have access to period products. I shoved a full wad of scratchy public bathroom toilet paper into my underwear. Now, did I, Lili Mitchell, tell my dad about any of this? The obvious answer is no. My dad and I at the time, we didn't ever talk to each other about anything emotional or personal. And I have always been a mama's girl. This trip was my father's attempt at bridging that gap, and while I was more comfortable hanging out with him after the last few days, I could not ever tell him about my period at the time. So, when I burst out of that restroom after stuffing my underwear with wads of toilet paper and found him waiting for me to finish my business, I raced up ahead, up the steep, foliage-filled trail, up, bounding over slick green moss and lichen-covered stones to put as much distance as possible between me and any embarrassing conversations. At the time, our main hiking rule was simple. I had to stay within eyeshot of my dad, and I had to wait for him if I got too far. However, on this hike, I just kept going up and up and up. I passed hikers and families with picnic lunches. I heard little critters skittering around the rocks at my feet, and once I looked up to see a glossy red-tailed hawk soaring high above the trees. Eventually, I mostly forgot about my period. I mean, I couldn't completely forget the feeling of scratchy and chafy underwear, but then again, who can? I gradually began to enjoy the day. I felt free and content, reflecting on how far I had come from just a few days before. And this is when the second fiasco happened. I unfortunately had stopped paying attention to the trail. Lost in my thoughts, I had casually followed the blue blazes on the boulders, and gradually I became less and less sure where I was. Eventually, I couldn't recognize where the pathway went, and I didn't see a blue blaze in sight. I was lost. I sat down, and hoping desperately that my dad would hear me, I called out to him. No answer. My voice cracked as I tried calling for him louder. No answer again. Teary-eyed, I tried again, but my shout was stuck in my chest, blocked by my panicked vocal cords. I knew I should stay in place and wait for someone to find me, but with mounting horror, I knew my dad would pass by this trail, continue to the summit, find that I was missing, and send out a search party for me. With tears running down my cheeks and snot bubbling up in my nose, I blew that little whistle that was part of the chest buckle of my hiking pack. It just made a pathetic whooshing sound, not the shrill, piercing ring that might reach any ears on the mountain. My tears finally abated, and I looked at my phone. I couldn't tell how far my dad had been behind me, nor how long it would take him to pass by me. So I got up, and I stepped 5 steps to my left. No blue blaze. Then, I stepped 5 steps to my right. I saw one on a huge flat-sided boulder I recognized, and rejoiced. I went to the boulder, and suddenly I found myself on the trail again. I followed it back to where the trail had split, and I found the sign that told me my mistake. I had taken the path to a scenic overlook instead of the one to the summit. I stood around at the sign for a few minutes, watching other hikers passing me on their way up. Worried that my dad had passed the sign already, I asked a family with children if I could hike with them to the summit. I awkwardly explained the whole situation, of course, minus the period part. They graciously took me in, and I accompanied them to the top, constantly checking ahead and behind for my dad's glaringly red backpack and very obvious baseball cap. When we reached the craggy ridge about a quarter mile from the summit, I looked back, and lo and behold, there is my father, huffing and puffing his way up in the midday heat. We waited for him, and then I told him the story. Again, minus the period part. His face went through a myriad of emotions: shock, terror, then pride, gratefulness, and relief, flying across it in succession. He tugged me into a tight, slightly smelly, very sweaty hug and thanked the family profusely. We continued together until I burst into tears again. My dad, who doesn't quite know how to comfort anyone crying at the best of times, endeavored to figure out what was wrong. He tried to walk to the summit with me and take a picture with Grace, the ever-present ceramic dinosaur that has to be carefully excavated from the depths of my dad's pack and gently unwrapped from her bubble-wrap coverings, but I refused. I was also hungry, but when he put a Nutella and peanut butter flour tortilla sandwich in my hand, I just cried harder. Only after I choked down a few mouthfuls and calmed down did I consent to a photo. We hiked down Mount Mansfield, and I grumpily vowed to never summit the high point again, condemning it as my least favorite hike ever in existence. I tried not to leak on the seats during the car drive home, and I was terrified that my dad would discover that I'd bled through my shorts, so I pulled my shirt so low over my thighs that it became a shirt dress. It's to the credit of my dad's emotional observational skills, i.e. next to nil, that he didn't discover that I had my period until my mom told him after I tearfully told her my predicament in my parents' bathroom the minute we got home. He then told me that we could have gotten pads at the CVS on the drive home if I had just told him, which, unsurprisingly, didn't make me feel any better. 12-year-old me was unsure if I wanted to continue this hiking project with my dad, what with the bugs, the long days, the car rides, and, of course, the snoring. In the 6 years since our first father-daughter high-pointing trip, I have completed 34 high points with my dad. Now we laugh until tears stream down our faces when retelling this story, and especially when my dad shows the infamous photo of me smile-scowling at the camera at the top of Mount Mansfield, clearly and utterly miserable. Yet somehow karma always knows when we giggle and never fails to kick my butt by timing my period to exactly align with each of our high-pointing trips. I am not kidding, every single time. That first road trip taught me to A, always have period supplies on me, and B, to never trust a rescue whistle built into a backpacking bag. I learned about my inner strength and resourcefulness in the face of challenges, that I should always look for and read trail signs at least 3 times, and that telling my dad about my period might not be the most embarrassing experience in the entire world. My dad learned more about having a teenage daughter than he ever thought he would, and that peanut butter and Nutella flour tortilla sandwiches are a terrible high-pointing lunch. Through trial and error, we have bonded closely over our many debacles and triumphs, hiking and road tripping all over the United States, from forgetting my inhaler before ascending 5,000 feet to the top of Mount Elbert in Colorado, to viewing beautiful panoramic vistas on an otherwise foggy day while summiting Mount Katahdin in Maine. We both enjoy recounting our trips while driving, so much so that it infuriates my mom whenever she shares a car with 2 obnoxious hikers who wax poetic for hours and hours and hours. I'm now a sophomore at Middlebury College, about an hour and a half away from the infamous Mount Mansfield. Gazing out at the Green Mountain National Forest, I wonder what it would be like to summit that high point again. Maybe I'll go to the scenic overlook purposefully this time, and take a picture at the summit with the biggest smile on my face. Maybe I'll bring my dad with me and we'll eat those dreaded Nutella and peanut butter flour tortilla sandwiches for remembrance's sake. Maybe I'll go with friends and regale them with the story and make them laugh and laugh and laugh. And perhaps, when I go, karma will kick me in the butt yet again, and it'll just be me, Mount Mansfield, and my period. My name is Lili Mitchell, and this is my short.
Thanks, Jessie and Lili, for sharing your stories. Our stories come from friends of friends, and from you, our community. If you have a compelling idea for a guest or a story lead, we love that. So please give us a shout. You can email us at editor@ducktapethenbeer.com. Thanks to the folks who have recently become Diaries Plus members and those that continue to support. It's the difference between this show being here and not. I am not overstating that. We're here because of you. So if you want us to keep going, please consider joining Diaries Plus. Music today from Jules, Blueprints, Tourists on Film, Spira, Todd Hannigan, and Brendan O'Connell. The tracks are courtesy of the Artists or Track Club. Jacob Bain and Nis Koto composed our theme song. You can find the artists at our website, dirtbagdiaries.com. This episode was produced and edited by Skylar Perwins, with additional production help from Becca Call. Illustration by Walker Call. Becca Call is also our executive producer. She wears many hats. And I'm Fitz. We're all family here, I guess. And you've been listening to the Dirtbag Diaries. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to And Then What, the segment where we break down the headlines and figure out what the hell's happened since then. Through the years, we've covered Minnesota's Boundary Waters. It's an incredible place, and chances are you've even been there because it is our country's most visited wilderness area. For the better part of 2 decades, there's been an ongoing battle over copper mining, one of the most aggressive, hard to clean up, and polluting types of mining out there, at the very top of the headwaters. Through it all, the campaign to save the Boundary Waters has been hard at work gathering support, doing work at the local, state, and national level. And in 2023, it looked like they'd managed to secure a lasting victory by building a coalition and outpouring of support that spanned political parties. And then, well, let's find out what happened. And it's not all bad. Today we talk with Ingrid Lyons, Executive Director of Save the Boundary Waters. Ingrid, you all have had a very busy spring, but first I want to take a moment and ask, how do you describe the Boundary Waters and this project you've been working on for so many years to the people who haven't been there?
The Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness is one of the most unique parcels of public land, I believe, in our entire country. The amount of water is truly mind-boggling. It is deeply interconnected freshwater. It's not often that you get to traverse an inland landscape by boat. When you include everything, all the landscape that sort of makes up canoe country, we're talking about the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness, but we're also talking about Canada's Quetico Provincial Park, as well as Voyageurs National Park. And when you put it all together, it's about 4.4 million acres of this extremely unique type of ecosystem. So I mean, I think it's really hard to wrap your mind around it. And so we're always encouraging of people to, get in a canoe and join us and experience the place firsthand. The project that Save the Boundary Waters has been working on for about a decade is really the effort to prevent the development of copper mining in the watershed of this incredibly unique, broad ecosystem. This is not the place for America's most toxic industry, which the EPA has found to be hard rock mining, which copper mining is. This copper mine is proposed on the doorstep of the Boundary Waters, which is the headwaters of essentially this entire watershed in the 4.4 million acre freshwater ecosystem. Even just hearing about it, people immediately understand why this is the wrong place for this type of highly destructive mining.
The battle over this copper mine has gone back and forth and back and forth. At the end of the Biden administration, it seemed like maybe we were past this. Maybe this was kind of like a done deal. What happened next?
So we were really thrilled when in 2023, Interior Secretary Deb Haaland put in place a 20-year ban in the watershed of the Boundary Waters. We were sort of bracing ourselves for a second Trump administration. And it's not because this issue is meaningfully partisan. It has become a political football at the administrative level. But when you look at polling, this issue polls really well, and it polls across partisan divides. I mean, I think that's a pretty typical story these days, that outdoor recreation and public lands and access to public lands poll really favorably across the country. In Minnesota, 70% of Minnesotans want to see this landscape permanently protected. The Obama administration had started a study and a process for withdrawing these lands. The Trump administration stopped that process. Biden administration got it back going. And so we're expecting and sort of gearing up for another big fight. And we got it.
How did you guys respond? And what happened right out of the gate when the new administration came in?
We went in eyes wide open, expecting full well that the steps of progress that we'd made, especially in the Biden administration, would be overturned. It was also in Project 2025. If you took the entirety of the Project 2025 sort of blueprint document and you Command F'd for Minnesota, the only mention of our state was about the revocation of this 20-year mining ban and opening the Superior National Forest in northeastern Minnesota up to copper mining. And so we've tracked about 20 relevant executive orders pertaining to national security, need for boosting of domestic mineral supply, the sort of like creation of this very complex network of sort of administrative directives aimed at opening America's public lands to destructive mining. No matter the administration, we meet with folks in the Forest Service, the Department of Interior, the Department of Agriculture, the relevant folks who are so critical in the decision making, and the folks who are the ones really tossing this football back and forth. And so we have been able to meet with the administration on a few occasions. And that's something that I think is really important to do, even if you kind of know you're going into a meeting with a brick wall.
Right out of the gate, you guys had a win, right? The rescinding of the mining ban was included actually in the budget bill, and you were able to remove that out. Like almost out of the gate, working with a House of Representatives that is Republican controlled, you were able to get that out of the House bill. And then what happened?
The reconciliation fight was a big one. The coalition really came together. Advocates really came together to use the process in our favor. I mean, the Boundary Waters language in reconciliation didn't belong there. And that was always clear. There's a lot of stuff that, maybe doesn't belong in reconciliation that managed to stay in. And so it was really gratifying to have champions like Senator Tina Smith and Representative Buddy McCollum really standing strong for the Boundary Waters. That was a really wonderful development. Actually, I was in Washington, D.C. when the House reconciliation bill had the Boundary Waters language removed, and was there the day that the Senate language came out and the Boundary Waters wasn't in it. And I was actually at the airport because I was about to fly home after, 3 days of advocacy in Washington. One of my team members texts me and she says, "Have you seen this tweet?" Like, what tweet? And lo and behold, the Secretary for the Department of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, had tweeted the very same day that Boundary Waters was officially out of reconciliation, that she and Interior Secretary Doug Burgum were beginning the process to overturn the 20-year ban on copper mining in the Superior National Forest. In the same breath, they also said that they had completed a process that clearly indicated that there was no need for the mineral withdrawal in the first place, including robust public input that pointed in that direction, which is all very confusing to us because, we've had no awareness of any process relating to undoing this mineral withdrawal. There's been no public comment meetings, no official notices in the Federal Register.
So what I almost hear you politely saying there is that they were just actually lying.
Yeah.
Like that they were sort of saying we'd done all this work and that this has all happened. And really they didn't like the outcome of what happened in the democratic institutions of Congress. And then they sort of made up a story where they're like, we're going to do this because we've done all this research, had all this public input, and it all says to remove this, when in fact none of that's happened. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's totally right. This is not how we create policy about public lands. One tweet, one inaccurate, callous tweet is how we determine the future of America's most visited wilderness. I think it's a really abhorrent precedent.
The Boundary Waters is this economic driver for the communities up there too. And so it's not just, right, like, I guess in your mind, like, this doesn't just seem like a tweet about public land management, but it's about people's livelihoods, their heritage. Do you feel like your community's waking up? Because obviously this is something that a lot of people in northern Minnesota worked really hard to protect and care for.
One of the things that really keeps me, I think, grounded and energized in this work is that this community is awake the vast majority of the time. They are really tuned in. They are there. They are ready to go. They are supportive. And I think, there's a lot of uncertainty. They're riding this roller coaster too, but it's, it's where they live. It's the outfitter on Main Street whose clients are canceling trips because, they're not sure what's going on and what the sentiment is up there. So there's a deep level of uncertainty. And it's the best thing about my job is seeing people so motivated and so passionate about protecting this place.
What can we do to support you? Like, are there ways we can help sort of you push back against this?
Something that I hear in Washington fairly often that frustrates me is this is a local issue. Mm-hmm. Representatives and senators say that to me all the time. This is a local issue. We don't want to get involved. And so what folks can do is make sure that their elected officials know that you care about the Boundary Waters. Even if you've never been and on principle you want to protect the Boundary Waters, it's really important to ensure that people understand that this is an issue that affects us all and also has really powerful potential to set precedent for other really iconic American landscapes or even less iconic American landscapes. I mean, I think to your point, this is America's most visited wilderness, but it's also obscure to a lot of people. But at the end of the day, it's about a concept, right? It's about protecting the natural spaces. It's about protecting fresh water. I think people can help in a lot of different ways, but really just making it known that people from across the country want to see this place protected is enormously helpful to us.
So what actionable steps can you take? First off, there's a high likelihood that after the administration's defeat, they will attempt to put the mining in the Boundary Waters back on the table through a bill in Congress. And as we just saw in the public land sell-off battle, we've seen that public input in Congress matters. In the meantime, let's help this campaign keep growing on a national level. Follow Save the Boundary Waters on social, sign up for their newsletters, and consider making a donation. We're posting these pieces on our website, dirtbagdiaries.com, in case you want to share. And then what? Thanks to Diaries Plus members for making this reporting possible. Links are on our website and in the recent show notes. Thank you for caring about public lands.